So let me start this video by saying I'm not a developer. I've never developed a video game at all. I have a cursory knowledge of technology, mostly because of being a console video game player, buying one system, the next generation system, the next generation system. So you learn a little bit over time about the differences between these systems. And for me, and most of the people I know that play console video games, the big push to move from one generation to the next is graphics. It's not resolution, it's not frame rate. Of course, those things are important. Of course, nobody wants to play a game at 5 frames per second, and most games are 30, 40, 60 frames per second. They're perfectly fine, serviceable, and you can play them, have a great time. But graphically, I think most people spot those differences. They don't necessarily see 4K or 8K, but they see a difference in graphics and polygon count. And that's where I want to begin, because RAM enables that to happen. I remember Lara Croft, the Angel of Darkness, terrible game on PlayStation 2, but when they demoed that game, there was an actual in-game character model of Lara Croft talking about the differences between the past versions of Tomb Raider and Angel of Darkness, and the character model said that because of the increased amount of polygons in her character, she looks more detailed. She looks more detailed. That is what people are seeing, moving from 8-bit to 16-bit to 32-bit, 64, and so on. So I want to move into Larian Studios and the issue that they're having with Baldur's Gate 3 on the Xbox Series S. Now, again, I want to stress, I'm not a developer. I don't know. However, there are questions that I have, and maybe you can answer them. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, I don't know. That's the reason for this video. But I watched Xbox give an interview about the Xbox Series S and X differences. This is a video a little while ago. And of course, the video was structured in a way that the questions were sort of presented before time. You can tell that the answers were ready, the questions were ready. And the person doing the interview was very favorable to Microsoft and Xbox. So I'm not somebody who would ask, questions that I would. And the questions that came up were the differences between the S and the X, and there's no real difference. It's just a resolution thing. The Xbox Series X is your 4K machine, and the Xbox Series S is your 1440p or 1080p, 60 or 30 frames per second, some 120 frames per second games. Okay, great. Resolution, frame rate. However, we get to Larian Studios, we get to Baldur's Gate 3, and there are some issues with gameplay features, not resolution and not frame rate. There are gameplay features that are having a difficult time transitioning from X to S, and conceivably it's because of the RAM difference in the S versus the X, and of course it's split RAM as well. So some of the questions that I would have are resolution and frame rate, fine, but what about gameplay features like the co-op, drop in and drop out? If you require more RAM for that than is available, we're not talking about resolution or frame rate differences. We're talking about gameplay features. And if you require more RAM than is available, you're going to have an issue. And that is a question that was never asked. So I'm asking it. Do you believe that my assumption is correct? Because again, I never developed a video game, but conceivably, Larian Studios is having an issue with the co-op on the Series S, but no issue with the X. The X is ready to go, but Microsoft says, no, there has to be gameplay feature parity. And that's where I start to raise some questions in my mind. You designed a system that has less RAM than the high-end system, which is competing against another high-end system, the PlayStation 5, which has no difference. PlayStation 5 physical, PlayStation 5 digital are the same system. So you designed this system, and in your mind, it was all resolution and frame rate, but what about RAM that's needed for gameplay features that have nothing to do with resolution or frame rate? So is this just a one-off issue with Larian Studios? Is this something that they're having a problem with and nobody else really had a problem with before? We haven't seen this issue before in the past, and we're seeing it now with this one big game. So is this an issue that we're going to see going forward when it comes to just gameplay features, not resolution, not frame rate? Those differences between the S and the X can be mitigated. Not that big of a deal. But when we start talking about developers wanting to create games with different styles of gameplay or features that make the gameplay more immersive, more fun, and they require more than the Series S has within it, that could be an issue going forward. I'm not sure. I never developed a video game, but I would have loved it if those questions would have been asked, because it does seem like right now, I mean, just think about it. Even if you have a cursory knowledge like I do, if you have less RAM than something else and you're designing a game for that system with more RAM, of course you can do more because you have more resources. So you're going to have to cut back to put it on the S, and resolution and frame rate, not that big of a deal to cut back to. However, gameplay features like Larian Studios, like that drop-in co-op, could be an issue with less RAM in the Series S going forward. That is my question to you. Do you think this is a one-off issue? They said they sent Microsoft engineers to help Larian Studios and still nothing happened. So if the Microsoft engineers couldn't figure this out, then clearly there must be an issue with the S versus the X when it comes to RAM and gameplay features. Not put resolution and frame rate out of your mind. We're talking about gameplay features. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Is this a one-off issue that will be resolved, and once Baldur's Gate 3 comes out on the Series S, we won't be talking about it anymore? Or is this a sign that skewing towards resolution and frame rate as the be-all end-all difference between one generation to the next really isn't that smart of an idea? It should be about graphics and features first and foremost, and you won't have any issues going forward if you focus on those versus just making the presumption that everyone's going to upgrade to a new generation simply because of higher resolution and frame rate. Let me know in the comment section below. Am I way off with this? Do I not know what I'm talking about? Help me understand it if I don't. Thanks for watching the video. Think about liking and subscribing. I keep hitting this microphone with my finger. That's the noise. See you in the next video.